Alrighty. Hopefully you guys on TikTok can hear me. I'm not too sure if the volume is good. If you are able to hear me, if someone can give me a thumbs up, that would be great. So my name is AJ and my tag name is Nevertheless She Persisted. I am actually live streaming on both TikTok and Instagram. So if you see me looking up and down, it's because I have two separate apps live streaming. So I have my phone and my tablet that I'm using. So I will be kind of looking up and down as I talk about the stages of grief. So last week I did a live, and the focus of my live is to kind of focus on the stages of grief as it relates to cancer, having a cancer diagnosis and going through the loss of my health, loss of employment, loss of my ability to do the things that I used to enjoy doing. It just had me thinking about how grief affects people that are dealing with physical health issues and not always just the loss of a loved one. So I decided to do alive, kind of talking about the stages of grief. And because there are multiple stages of grief, I just wanted to touch on one stage at a time. So last week I talked about denial, which is the first stage of grief, and that has to do with kind of having a difficult time accepting a diagnosis. If you are diagnosed with cancer, just getting that initial diagnosis, a lot of time it's hard to kind of wrap your mind around the diagnosis. And one of the things that I touched base on last week was kind of how people deal with denial. Some people may isolate, some people may kind of delay treatment and do everything to avoid dealing with the diagnosis. And for me, my denial wasn't necessarily avoiding appointments. I did make sure that I followed all of the recommendations from my doctors, doing everything that I needed to do initially. It was like 1,000,001 appointments at my first diagnosis after my biopsy confirmed that I was positive for triple negative breast cancer. But this week I wanted to talk about anger, which is the second stage of grief. And anger has to do with kind of the frustrations and feeling resentment once you come to grips with the diagnosis of breast cancer. And the anger stage is usually a stage where you are trying to process how you are feeling. It may be frustration, irritation, fear, sadness, and all of those things can kind of make you angry. And usually they say if a person is angry, it's an underlying emotion that has to do with the anger. And for me, I did experience a lot of anger early on. And again, with the stages of grief, it may be something that you experience. You feel that you got a grip on your diagnosis. You're going through the treatments. You're doing everything that you need to do. But anger can still show back up even if you feel like you have gotten past that hurdle. So for me, I would say that at the initial diagnosis, I did feel angry at multiple things. I think the first time that anger was present was when I was diagnosed with breast cancer, which was early last year, 2024. And my anger was towards, I would say, the doctor and a radiologist that was responsible for monitoring my health. Prior to my breast cancer diagnosis, I did have a lump in my left breast, and I was being monitored for every 6 months. I would have a mammogram and an ultrasound, and a doctor and a radiologist wanted to kind of see if there was any changes in the lump in my breast. And that took place for 2+ years where I would just see the doctor every 6 months. I would have the mammogram and an ultrasound. And the doctor always put in the notes, probably benign. So because I didn't have a history of breast cancer in my family, because I was under the age of 40 when the lump was first discovered, it didn't feel to me like the doctors really took that seriously. So when a second lump was discovered by me doing a self breast exam, and a biopsy was ordered, and it turned out to be positive for breast cancer, it just made me feel angry. It made me feel like the doctors didn't take my health seriously, and it just made me kind of frustrated with the whole process, just wondering if something was done sooner, would that have changed my course of treatment? Or could there have been something done where I wouldn't have this long, drawn out year plus treatment plan that include chemotherapy and having a mastectomy and immunotherapy? Because again, I think that the way it was handled, it could have been a situation where things were caught earlier than it was. That would have possibly changed my treatment plan. Maybe it wouldn't have. We would never know. But just thinking about how I felt unheard prior to my diagnosis kind of made me angry. And then the next thing that I would say that like made me feel angry was just the healthcare system, or the health system in general, just knowing that they put so many things, so many criteria that they put in place to kind of determine whether or not additional testing is needed. So if you're young and you're healthy and there's no family history, regardless of the concerns you have, they don't do anything aside from monitoring any lumps or anything that you may find to be abnormal. And a lot of times with the healthcare system, they are not wanting to pay for extra testing, whether that's a MRI or like I had to have when a second lump was done, like the biopsy. A lot of times these things are delayed, and that can have a negative impact on the success of remission, or how a person is able to how the end of treatment or that looks like. When I had the doctor tell me that it was probably benign and they wanted to have me follow up 6 months, every 6 months I did follow up with a second provider, just to see if there was any difference, just like I said, because I didn't feel heard. But that doctor's office did the exact same thing. So it wasn't necessarily the doctor and the radiologist at the first place. I think it's just the way the system is set up, where people are not, or doctors and healthcare, health insurance are trying to avoid having to pay for testing when you don't fit the criteria of having a history of breast cancer or being at a certain age. Another thing that kind of was frustrating and made me angry was just the amount of out-of-pocket costs during the process. Before my diagnosis, getting a biopsy done, having to pay co-pays, which is like $400, I believe, for the biopsy to be completed, and that's just one procedure. And then after being diagnosed with cancer and knowing how much you're going to have to pay out of pocket for the treatment, whether it's the chemotherapy or the immunotherapy, out of pocket expenses for the surgery, when you have co-payments and deductibles and premiums, and all of those things add up. And it's just like, how do you survive when your income is bare minimum? You live in paycheck to paycheck. You're possibly gonna have to be out of work because of your illness, and you just having to figure out how to make ends meet. And one of the things that we had to do, me and my family, my husband and I, was kind of considering whether or not he may have to take a second job. And then again, just the reality of him taking a second job, but me needing help at home, being able to keep things running at home, being able to make sure the kids are good, the house is good. So it's just like a catch-22. What do you do? If you have the support and your husband is able to work two jobs, my whole thing is, am I going to be able to keep things running? And the fact was that wasn't something I was able to do. After having chemo treatments, I was exhausted, like unable to get out of bed for days at a time. I think that when my cycle was chemo and immunotherapy once a week, I was kind of out of it and sick the first 5 days. Then the last 2 days, I started to feel a little bit better, a little bit normal, getting up, being able to do things. And then after the 2 days, I'm right back in treatment. So it was a continuous cycle where it was kind of difficult. So we made the decision that at that moment, it was kind of better for my husband to just be home, making sure everything is running, because I wasn't able to kind of do those things. And as a result, our expenses and our bills took a hit. So we had to kind of decide, are we going to focus on the medical bills or bills that are going to have to kind of be unpaid until we're able to afford it? So those things just kind of make you angry, because you shouldn't have to decide between affording medications that's going to save my life or being able to pay the bills and making sure we have a roof over our head and food on our table. So just going through that experience, it definitely made me angry. Another thing that I would say during this time was just the employer piece. I was working full time prior to my diagnosis. I was with my company for several years, and always a good employee, always working hard. I worked with adults that had mental illness and prison system, getting them back in the community, transitioning them back in the community. So my role was kind of working with them, navigating the resources, making sure they're connected to the supports and services they need, helping them find doctors to manage their mental health and their physical health, and keeping track of appointments and making sure they got where they needed to go, whether it's setting up transportation or transporting them and accompanying them to appointments if they needed that support. So once I became sick, I had to prioritize my own health, knowing that my immune system was going to be compromised, knowing that I just didn't have the energy and the strength to kind of do what I did for other people, and that I had to prioritize myself. It just made it difficult for me to kind of maintain employment. So I did have to go on medical leave. I did get FMLA, and just the process of getting paperwork filled out and sending it to HR and just back and forth about what they need, and just feeling bad because you have to take off of work and you have to prioritize yourself, and just feeling like sometimes you're jumping through the hoops in order to take care of yourself. Meanwhile, when I was working and healthy, all of the things that I did for my clients. And the biggest thing that we always taught our clients, or told our clients, was you have to prioritize your health. You have to stay healthy. You got to go to doctors. You got to take your medications as needed. And you got to make sure that you're good, because if you're not good, then you can't do anything for anybody else. So constantly advocating that for clients, and then feeling like when I need that kind of support and that guidance is just not there. So that definitely was something else that kind of made me feel a little bit angry during this journey. And another thing that I would say, which is probably something that's small, I'm not too sure if anybody else may have felt this way or feel this way now, but one of the things that also kind of made me feel angry during the process was just society. Seeing people on social media just having fits and crying about things that are just not important. It was a video that I saw. It was of a female. She had just gone out, I guess, partying at a nightclub or something like that. And on her way home, she picked up food. When she got home, she dropped her food and she was just like crying, bawling. And it's just like, that's something so little while I'm here fighting for my life. Like, you're having a breakdown over something like dropping food. So that just, again, just made me feel a certain way. And even for like some people who have fits about having a bad hair day, like, at least you have hair. When you're going through cancer, when you're going through chemo and you lose all of your hair, like, the last thing you want to hear is somebody complaining about a bad hair day. Like, for people in chemo, getting chemotherapy, like, every day is a bad hair day. We're losing hair, it's thinning, your head is eventually bald, wearing things on your head may be irritating, you don't feel pretty, you lose your eyebrows, you lose your eyelashes, and it's nothing you can do about it. So I would say that was just something that was a little frustrating kind of seeing for me. And then I would say, again, with the economy, everything being so expensive, during my diagnosis, like I said, we were kind of struggling with managing our bills and being able to afford the things that we needed. And unfortunately, during that time, we did have our family pet, which was a little chihuahua that we had for years. She did wind up getting sick, and we just didn't have the money that we needed to be able to pay for diagnostic testing at the vet and treatment. And unfortunately, she did pass away. So I think that was difficult for the family as well, because it was unexpected. And then for me, I just felt guilty just because it wasn't anything that I can do. Like, I didn't have the money to be able to pay for the treatment that she needed. Like, I'm barely being able to pay for my treatment, and it's just not a lot of support and resources out there. Like, there are different programs that they have available to apply for when you're dealing with financial difficulties and have a breast cancer diagnosis. But there's so many people that need help. So a lot of times you may not be approved. The process may be so long where you're waiting months and months for assistance, and you're winding up losing things because you just don't have the money to kind of stay afloat. So that all of those things definitely causes anger, making you feel like anger and angry. And I know that some people during their diagnosis have had situations where their anger may have been directed towards like loved ones, and they have a relationship that may not be the best because they were unable to kind of maintain a relationship with loved ones. And luckily, I would say for me, my family has been like my biggest support. And I think that just seeing all of the sacrifices they've made throughout this process just to make sure I'm good, I definitely has helped me through this process. But for some people, like I said, like, you may have family members that are supportive, but you're angry and you take it out on your loved one, and it not may not be intentional, but it's just something that just happens. So I would say, like, if you do have a loved one, or your relationship is strained, or you're feeling like you don't have the support that you feel you need, and that makes you angry towards your loved one, the big thing I would say is just making sure you have conversations with your family or friends or whoever is a part of that support team, and letting them know what you need. A lot of times they don't know how to help. It's new to them, just like it's new to us. And even though we may be the one that's going through all of the physical changes, they're going through things as well, having to worry about whether or not we're gonna pull through. feeling helpless on their end because it's nothing that they can do to kind of help us feel better, especially if we're sick from the treatments and we're losing our ability to be independent and feeling sad and feeling just hopeless. Family members a lot of times don't know how to handle that. So I think sometimes family members may kind of take a step back, not knowing if that's the right thing to do. And again, being able to communicate with your family members and loved ones to let them know what it is that you need. There will be times where there are family members who, probably no matter how much you tell them how much you need or what you need, they just may not be the best people to rely on. So knowing which family members could be in a part of that support system and keeping open communications and just having some empathy, trying to put yourself in their shoes, knowing that again they don't know what we need, and if we don't communicate what we need, then it will be hard for them to kind of make sure they're there the way we need them to be there. And if you, like I said, if you did have family members and you have strained relationships at the moment, you may want to kind of have conversations with them to acknowledge how you may have been treating them, acknowledging your actions, making sure you take full responsibility for anything that you may have done, whether it's just being rude to them or being impatient with them, having that conversation and showing genuine remorse. Like, we're only human. We can't control all of our emotions all of the time. When we do have situations where we may come off rude or aggressive or disrespectful, again, just taking accountability for how you made your loved one feel is important, because again, a lot of times family members do want to be there for us, and if you are angry and you're pushing them away, then like it's something that we have to take accountability for, and explaining what's going on with you without justifying it. Like, having a diagnosis is difficult, and emotions are all over the place. Some days you may be happy, some days you may be sad, some days you may be doubtful, some days you may feel like it's the end of the world. Some days you may be angry, but throughout all of those emotions, again, we do have to be accountable to how we are treating other people, because it's not their fault, and it's nobody's fault, not anybody that we can blame. So we want to make sure that we are letting them know that we are sorry for how we're acting and not justifying it just because we are sick. And then understanding that sometimes they may need to have space, so being patient. If you do something to piss somebody off, and vice versa, if somebody does something to piss you off, we are all have the right to request some space to process how we're feeling, and patience is necessary on both sides. So you want to give that person space. You want to make sure that they're able to process everything, and hopefully they will be willing to accept your apology and kind of continue to be your support throughout this process. So that's definitely important. I would say, like, as far as coping skills, when it comes to feeling angry and trying to manage your anger, I would say for me, the biggest thing was relying on the supports that I have, talking about how I'm feeling, taking time to myself when needed, to kind of process my thoughts and how I'm feeling, because some days there just wasn't any words to kind of describe how I'm feeling, or some days I just didn't want to be around other people to just because I just needed that space. I would say, an introvert. I think that I always need space and time to myself. And that's just a coping mechanism that I use for myself because, again, I know being around people all of the time is just overwhelming. So I need that time to myself and being able to process my feelings without any type of influence from anybody else is definitely something that was needed and helpful for me. But it wasn't isolating to the point to where I'm just by myself all day, every day, just down and crying and sad. It's just, like I said, having that time, but knowing when I needed to kind of get up and push myself forward and do the things that I needed to do to push forward. Again, my family has been a big support, and my motivation has always been kind of to show my family that I'm gonna be okay. That kind of helped me through it because when it's just you, it's easy to have a pity party. But when you have other people that are relying on you and expecting you to live a long life, you want to make sure you're up and doing everything that you need to do, everything that the doctor tells you you need to do so that you could be healthy and well. Another outlet I would say would be exercise. When I was first diagnosed and I had the chemotherapy and immunotherapy every week, I think it was hard for me to be physical, just because I was sick a lot. When my treatment went to once every 3 weeks, that gave me more time to recover. And during the days that I felt well, I would go and walk on a treadmill, go for a walk outside, and that was that helped me. I think exercise is always a good thing, but again, depending on how you're feeling, it may not always be something that you're able to do. So once I had my surgery, so I had a double mastectomy with reconstruction, and the healing process was several weeks. So during my time when I was in recovery, I couldn't exercise, and then I had to have a second surgery, and that just made it more difficult for me to get back into the gym, just walking on a treadmill and doing things that were pretty simple just to get my exercise in. So during that period where exercise wasn't an option, just going to sit outside, sit in the sunlight, was something that was helpful. Even though I wasn't able to be active. And another thing I would say is music, listening to music. I enjoy listening to music. I listen to all types of music depending on my mood. Some songs I like R&B, hip hop, pop, gospel. I listen to podcasts, watch reality TV sometimes, and just anything to kind of keep my mind off of my situation. I think that for me, reality TV has been something that I have indulged in because it's just seeing other people's lives and being able to escape and just watch other people live their lives, and that kind of kept me out of my head. And then keeping up with what's going on in the world was something that I've also done. But I would say in today's political climate, too much of the news is not a good thing and might cause more stress than needed. So definitely, you want to find things that you could do that alleviates your frustrations and kind of gets you to feeling a little bit better and out of the negative mindset. Mindful activities, I would say, like meditation, breathing exercises. Those things are always recommended. I don't think I've ever been the type of person that does meditation or anything like that, or breathing exercises. But for some people, it definitely helps. So I would say that if you're feeling angry, you're feeling frustrated, and you just need to find a quiet space, close your eyes, breathe. They have meditation apps that you can use to kind of help you with deep breathing exercises and getting your mind to manage your overwhelming thoughts. Seeking support is something that's helpful. Again, like I spoke about earlier, is having a good support system around you. And if you don't, they do have support groups that you can connect with. So I would say that connecting with your doctor, your treatment team, if you have a nurse navigator in your area, just seeing if they can connect you with support groups in your area. They may have in-person support groups, they may have online support groups, and then on social media they also have support groups that you can join and that may be may be helpful. The support groups that I've joined have always been on social media. On Facebook, they do have like a specific support group for women diagnosed with breast cancer. And the group that I joined, it does have moderator or administration that checks and makes sure the people that are joining are real people that are diagnosed and working on navigating the whole diagnosis and journey. There are some support groups that are open to the public, and I would be a little bit cautious about those type of support groups because a lot of times you'll find there is misinformation, or you're gonna be noticing that you're getting messages for people trying to sell you stuff, telling you about these remedies that can cure cancer, and you don't want to be misinformed. You don't want to connect with a group that's going to be stressful, more confusing, and just people that aren't really there because they're going through it, but just there to kind of exploit your situation. I know one of the groups that I was in that I had to take myself out of was a group where there was one individual that was like constantly posting about different struggles they were going through and requesting money from the members in the group. And it was at one point someone made a comment that that person was a scammer, and unfortunately people did donate and give money to this individual, and they weren't even going through the things that they said that they were going through. So I'm always cautious now about the type of groups that I do enter. So you want to make sure if you do join a group on social media, it is a group that has an administrator, somebody that's monitoring who's being allowed to join and making sure that the group isn't a public group, that is specifically for people who are going through what you're going through. The group that I am in, like I said, has a moderator or administrator, and it's just a group of women, thousands of women going through breast cancer, different types of breast cancer, different stages of breast cancer, all different ages. And the group has been helpful to me because when I was first diagnosed and I had my first treatment for chemotherapy, one of the things that I noticed was that I was the youngest person getting the chemotherapy treatment. And that just made me feel isolated and sad, and it wasn't a good experience. When you feel like you're an outcast or you're the youngest, or it starts to make you feel like, why me? And going through the whole pity party, which I didn't like at all. So when I joined the group, it was just surprising how many young people have been diagnosed with breast cancer and hearing their journeys, like people in their early 20s, women that don't have children yet and are worried about how they're able to, or if they're going to be able to have children, or women that are currently pregnant and going through this. And it's just so many different types of people from all different walks of life, and I think that that community is a positive community. Like, you can have questions answered, people who've been through the things you've been through, from getting your port placed, not knowing what to expect when you have to go to the doctor for your chemo port to be implanted, not knowing what to expect when you're on certain medications and when you have certain side effects, or when you go through surgery, not knowing what's normal, if you're healing normally, if anybody else have experienced the things that you've experienced. So I think that support group has really been helpful. When I was on the chemotherapy medication and immunotherapy medications, I've dealt with my fingernails being discolored, my toenails being discolored, losing all of my hair. Thankfully, I do have my eyebrows the microblading, so my eyebrows was good. And I would like to say thank you to my sister for that. Prior to starting treatment, she did take me to get my eyebrows microbladed, just trying to figure out what she can do, even though there wasn't much she could do about my diagnosis and me losing all my hair and everything like that. She did take me to get my eyebrows microbladed. So even though I was kind of bald throughout my journey, I had eyebrows, so that made me feel a little bit better. I wasn't completely bald looking like a milk dud. So it's the little things that helps. But I would say that like I said, losing all of your hair, just that journey. I've dealt with neuropathy in my hands and in my feet. I had discoloration on my tongue, which was weird. And then just dealing with chemo brain. Like, if you've never experienced chemo brain and you have cancer, that is an experience where you're getting what you were doing, like forgetting appointments. I had to keep track of my appointments on my planner. I had to constantly look at my planner to remember when I needed to be somewhere and what time I needed to be somewhere. If I needed to do something, I would constantly have to make a to-do list, because I can say, okay, I needed to finish laundry, and then I would forget that I needed to finish laundry. It was just simple things that were hard for me to remember. And I had to keep a list. It was so bad that, like, writing a list, I couldn't remember how to spell words. My mind was just so foggy, and I just couldn't process what I needed to do, what I needed to write, how to spell. It was just crazy. And that was difficult, because even going to doctor's appointments, like every appointment you go to, the doctor asks, are there any new symptoms? Are there anything that you're concerned about? Anything you want to talk about? And if you can't remember, then that doesn't help you at all. So I always had to kind of keep a list of everything that I needed to ask the doctor about. And then I would also experience hot flashes, and that was just awful. So, like I said, the support group was helpful, because everything that I've experienced was things that other people have experienced. And just seeing people who have had a diagnosis and had their breast cancer metastasized, and just having their encouragement, even though mine's haven't, but just knowing that there are people that situation is worse than mine, having a positive attitude and being there and showing support to all of the new people that come into the group to kind of let us know that we got this. So I would say that helped. That definitely helped. And then being able to relate to people, especially when you're having feelings of anger and other people, just acknowledging that it's normal to feel angry and not feeling guilty about being angry, and being able to have people say like your emotions are valid. So just that validation helped. And like I said, so if you don't have family support and you don't have people that you feel would be good to have in your corner, definitely look into support groups because it is helpful. And if you are a family member, again, being able to connect to groups where family members get together is something that's helpful and useful as well. Because as a family member, you're also navigating this diagnosis with your loved one, and you may not know what to do or how to do it or what the person needs or how to act, or when you're doing too much or when you're not doing enough, when you're being overbearing, when like all of those things are new to you as well. So having that support could be helpful if you are a loved one caring for a person that has a diagnosis of cancer. I would say, like, luckily, my family knows me well. They know that, they know me. Prior to my diagnosis, I enjoy being by myself at times. Like, I love my family, and we always have family gatherings and things like that, and I'm always there, but a lot of times, like, I do like to be by myself. So my family understands that. But during my diagnosis, my family also understood or was observant of me and my patterns, and making sure they checked in with me and kept me engaged in life. So like I said, if that's not something that you have, the support groups are there, and you do form relationships with people that are in these support groups because they're able to kind of walk with you and get you through the situation. Another thing is being able to focus on what you can control. That's a big thing when it comes to anger. You want to be able to focus on doing the things that you can do, and not overwhelming yourself with the things that are out of your control. So like one of the things that I use all the time is the serenity prayer. The serenity prayer, I believe, is like, God grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So that is definitely helpful because sometimes you're overwhelmed thinking about everything that's going on, and 99% of the things that you're dealing with are things that you have no control over changing. So stressing yourself out, feeling overwhelmed, and not being able to do anything about it doesn't serve you any good, doesn't serve a purpose in your life, and it just makes things worse, makes you more anxious, makes you more angry, makes you more depressed. So doing the things that you can do, and knowing the difference when it comes to the things that you have no control over. So one of the things that you have no control over is your diagnosis, of course. There's nothing you can do about that. Nothing you can do to prevent the diagnosis. In my personal opinion, I don't feel there's anything that can be done to prevent your diagnosis. Like, for me, I was healthy, young, no family history, doing everything I felt I was doing to be a healthy individual. And unfortunately, when it comes to genetics, it was a genetic mutation that put me at a higher risk for breast cancer and ovarian cancer. So could I do anything about that? No, unfortunately, I couldn't, because it was something that was I was born with. Didn't know anything about it until I had genetics testing. So again, that's out of my control. Having a diagnosis is out of my control. Treatment plan. Yes, you can have a conversation with your doctor about what you feel would be the best treatment for you. So I would say you have some control in that sense, but at the end of the day, getting the treatment and it's not something, or the side effects of the treatment is not anything that you can control. So that's one thing that's kind of out of your hands. What you can control is the things you eat, being active if you can be active, allowing yourself to feel how you feel, reaching out for support when you need the support, resting when you need to get rest, and again, taking it one day at a time, one moment at a time, one appointment at a time, and knowing that there's no right way to feel, no right way to do any of the things that we were unfortunately forced to have to do. So that's again all we can do. Maintaining a routine to kind of feel like a sense of normalcy. But that may be, again, always not easy to do. For me, my routine would be eating, getting out of bed, making sure I eat, making sure I take a shower, but also knowing when I couldn't do more than that. And there was some days where I just couldn't. But getting out of bed was a big thing that I made an effort to do. And that was something that my doctor always made sure she communicated. When I had an appointment, my doctor would be like, are you getting out of bed? Are you moving around? Are you trying to be active as you can be? Like that was, again, something that I had to consciously do, because getting out of bed sometimes help you feel better, and being in bed can lead to feeling depressed and hopeless. So getting out of bed, even if it's for a little while is in your control. And just making sure you set small goals for yourself, and realistic goals for yourself. Not thinking that you can do everything that you once did, because that's not realistic. Your body is going through so many changes. The medications is breaking down your body. You're tired. You're unable to eat. You may be losing weight. Your body is changing. Your mood and emotions are all over the place. So again, making sure you set small goals, small things, and as you start to get through the process and get towards the end of your journey, just kind of building on those little goals, and making sure that you're doing things to achieve the long-term goal, which is being whoever you're meant to be. I was gonna say being who you were before, but for me, I don't think I'm gonna ever be who I was before. Just a different outlook on life. This experience has kind of given me a different outlook on a lot of things, and like health wise, I feel like my body has broken down a lot. I'm not as I don't have as much energy as I used to have. Sleep is horrible. Some days I'm just up, tossing and turning, can't sleep, feeling tired all of the time. Or if I am out running errands and get home, I'm just so exhausted. So hopefully as time passes, I can do things that I used to do. But like I said, I know that I'm not going to be the same person that I was before. And that's okay. That's okay. That's okay. And then I would say trying to enjoy the things that you enjoy doing um, when you're able to do it. Like I said, I like to listen to music. I do like to spend time with my family when we have special events. We are going to be having a Super Bowl party on Sunday next week. Eagles. My husband is an Eagles fan, so we are rooting for the Eagles. Come on, Eagles. So that's gonna be exciting. So yeah, so those are some of the things that I feel are helpful with yeah, I see you on TikTok, Eagles. That's right. We gotta get this one. We gotta win this one. So that's gonna be exciting to do. So again, finding things that you enjoy doing. If you don't enjoy the things that you once enjoyed doing, figuring out other things that might be enjoyable for you. And I would like we had a day where we went out to, it was just like a lake. My family and I, me and my sister, niece, and my daughter went to a lake and we did some painting. And that was fun. So just thinking of different things that may bring joy to your life, to get your mind off of things or to alleviate your anger. But like I said, at the end of the day, anger is a natural, is normal to be angry. It's normal to have your emotions all over the place, but just figuring out how to cope with it, figuring out how to manage your anger in a way that doesn't push people away or doesn't have a negative impact on you getting better and your treatment and just the support you need to have around. So that's something that I would say is important. So yeah, so that's my spiel on anger. Like I said, the stages of grief, it is not something that is like linear, meaning that you go from denial to anger to bargaining to depression to acceptance, and then you're done. When it comes to the stages of grief, you may be jumping back and forth between stages. You may be in denial, you may be in depression, you may feel like you've accepted your diagnosis, and then you may become angry, then you may start to bargain. Like, these stages of grief are not start to finish, and everybody goes through different stages and different things, and so you never want to compare your journey with someone else's. You want to be able to just acknowledge that you're different and everybody processes things differently, and that is okay. Let's see, on TikTok, Maddie, have an amazing day. Lovely, you're gorgeous. Thank you, Maddie. Thank you for joining. I hope you have a great day too. Like I said, Eagles all the way. Eagles, Eagles, Eagles. And let's see, we have on Instagram, family first, family love. Take it easy, one step at a time. Be easy, stay strong and positive. And that is definitely something that is important. And every little thing does count. You're still a beautiful queen. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I am gonna see if anybody has any questions. Anybody wants to share, join my live. We have about 7 minutes because I would definitely want to keep this short and not to an hour. So if there's anybody that is interested in joining my live to share their story, just put in a request. Like I said, if you're just joining me, I am doing a live on TikTok and on Instagram. And let's see if I have any requests in the request box. So I do have a request on Instagram. Let me see if I'm able to connect this person. Oh, I don't know what that is. Okay. So, yeah, I don't know. But so before I end this live, like I said, being able to accept being able to accept or being able to focus on changing the things that you can change. So, like I said, the serenity prayer is something that has been helpful for me. I did say what the serenity prayer is, but I'm going to say it again. The serenity prayer is something that I use or I remember because it is helpful. Thinking about your journey and being able to focus on everything that you can change without overwhelming yourself thinking about the things that you have no control over. That definitely will make you angry. It'll steal your joy away, the little bit of joy that you may have, and just make you feel anxious and worried. And a lot of this journey, the things that we are focused or forced to deal with are out of our control. So the serenity prayer is, Lord, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, the courage to change the things that I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. So I will leave you guys with that. And next week, I will be doing a live again on the Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you are available to join me, I would definitely appreciate it. And if you want to join my live and be a part of the conversation, share your journey, share your experience, whether you're going through a cancer diagnosis or if you have a family or a loved one that is going through a cancer diagnosis and you have some input or anything that you would like to add to the conversation. It would be just grateful or joyful to have you on my live just to share from another perspective. So I hope you guys have a good night and a wonderful rest of your week, a great weekend, and hopefully I will see you next week. Take care.